So it seems like we have another case of Reddit being Reddit again whenever it comes to certain VTubers, and this time it's to do with Silvervale. Now, like pretty much every single VTuber or creator on there, Silvervale has a ton of different kind of places to go to in terms of sponsors and different kind of accounts that she has, including a Fansly account and also a Patreon, which obviously the Patreon is the main thing that we're going to talk about today, because it seems like some people have been pretty upset with her pricing on the Patreon, which again I think is a little bit weird considering, it's really not that big of a deal, especially if you are doing other stuff. Now, of course, this is a very NSFW thing, so again, I'm not going to stay on that for too long, but you can tell exactly the kind of content that she does on there, and it is something that some people like to pay for, of course. But yeah, it seems like recently I came across this thread talking about the prices on her Patreon, essentially saying this may be unjustified, but I find it so annoying how some large VTubers have ridiculous prices for their Patreon. Like, I can get 10 times more value out of my money by other Patreons in comparison. And obviously, yeah, you can see here they bring up the most popular tier, which is the middle tier, being $35 a month, which obviously is quite a lot of money. I agree that is quite a lot of money. You can see here the choose your membership thing. You got the gold Patreon, which is the lowest one, which is 25, and then diamond, which is 50. And of course, some people have money for that and some people don't have money for that, and I think that is entirely up to the person that is obviously looking at it. Now, of course, they leave some other examples of, I guess, some other Patrons for comparison here, essentially saying, they do it for much cheaper, it's like $3 or whatever. And I do think, obviously there is a difference between, some people on Patreon, because of course I'm sure some of these artists are pretty big in their own respectives, but I think Silvervale is quite a big content creator, right? She has like, what, how many followers? 522,000 followers on Twitter. So her content is more in demand than, let's say some other smaller artists or some other smaller content creators that are also making stuff over on Patreon, which in a sense kind of justifies the kind of increase in price, right? There's more demand, so she can get away with, having the price up a little bit higher, right? And I do think, as I said, it doesn't really matter, right? But I think that even if you do think that this is like a crazy amount to be paying for the stuff that is on the tier, I don't know, like, just don't pay for it. I think that is honestly the biggest thing that I wanted to say here, because of course, the platinum Patreon, you get a ton of like certain art sets and wallpapers, as well as polls and a ton of other stuff, and all of the earlier stuff too. So essentially, yeah, a bunch of like, kind of spicy content, right? And of course, they go on to talk about this, and people saying, I mean, free will is a thing, and they're saying free will is a myth, which obviously, yeah, I mean, you could do whatever you want. I feel like this is one of the most stupidest posts that I think I've ever seen. I think it is one of these things where, yeah, if you don't like the price that Silvervale is setting for her Patreon, then just don't pay for it and just ignore it, right? You don't have to join her Patreon. Of course, it seems like she does have a lot of members already, so I don't think she really needs an extra. Obviously she probably wants an extra person on there, but again, of course, I think that, she's pretty happy with that pricing, because if the price was too high, then of course nobody would be paying for the Patreon, right? And she wouldn't be getting any sales, meaning that she probably would have to drop the price. If the price was that absurd for some people, then she would have to be forced, essentially, to drop the price because no one's paying for it. But clearly there are people that are paying for this kind of price, so why drop it? Why drop it? People are paying for it, so keep it, right? I think that is the most obvious kind of thing, to point out there. People saying, do you want Silvervale to count to 10 while calling you a good boy or not? It said, Yandere Dev still has an active Patreon. We got bigger issues. It said, at the end of the day, as long as people are paying, they have no reason not to. The same thing that goes for OF girls. Hell, even other content, and still making a bag, since you can easily look up any content you want just by browsing those kind of sites, which, yeah, again, is absolutely true. You don't have to go. This Patreon isn't the only source of material that some people are going to, which I think is like something that I guess, kind of gets pushed a little bit, like, oh, hey, Silvervale's Patreon is the only place that I go to for all of that kind of stuff, right? There's so many other websites, so many other places you can go to and spend your time on instead without having to pay this amount of money for free. There's just like, it just doesn't really make sense as to why people are getting so mad about it, right? So yeah, obviously, as they say there, they kind of bring up the same point as me with the fact of, hey, you know, if there is people buying it, there is people actually kind of signing up to it, then there's no need to drop the price, right? That's just how it works. People said not just VTubers, but anyone who has a large established community tends to make their spicy content more costly than other people's that make spicy content for a living as their base job. See the celebrity of creators. They said, I hate how half of the art on Galbor has retroactively paid and deleted. Some of those Patreons are $25. I'm not paying even $5 for 1 month of limited access and being unable to show my friends. But again, obviously they are quite right there. They're not just VTubers, but anybody that has a community that, you know, maybe they don't upload as much, they don't make as much content as maybe some person who does it for like a straight up living, literally uploading content every day or whatever. Sometimes people prefer the kind of less in demand stuff. So, you know, people will pay that little bit extra because they don't make, you know, stuff on Patreon as often. You know, people saying, good thing I have kimono friends to party with, which obviously is a little bit of a reference to things. People saying, I mean, it's blank. You can find a ton of that elsewhere. You don't have to spend $35, which, yeah, obviously a 29 upvote. So it seems like a lot of people are on, you know, the comment side are on Silvervale's side here, which is great to see, because I did think this post was stupid just to see to begin with, because again, as the same goes for pretty much any kind of subscription service or any kind of thing that you are paying for. If it's too expensive, you don't have to buy it. Now, of course, maybe if it is something like you know, like house, like rent or whatever, sure, right? Maybe you could get annoyed at that one because again, you don't really have much of an option apart from move out, which obviously is a pretty bad, or not pretty bad, but a pretty hard option, right? But you know, whenever it comes to some silly drawings on the internet, let's be real, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to spend the money, and you know, you don't have to complain about the price because again, it doesn't concern you if you're not paying, right? And obviously, if you're saying things are priced at what people are willing to pay for, be mad at the people who pay that ridiculous amount, not the person who's doing the economically smart thing. 100% true, right? You know, you could be mad at the people who pay for it, sure, like, because of course they are the ones that obviously keep Silvervale going, which is great, by the way, because of course that means that Silvervale gets more customers and gets more money and gets, you know, obviously a ton of support, right? But again, obviously it is their kind of, you know, it is them that are essentially the ones that are keeping it at that price because they found a kind of sweet spot in the price, right? I think Silvervale has found a sweet spot in terms of what people are willing to pay without going too high or too low. Obviously, maybe if she lowered it a little bit further, right, more people would join. But again, let's just think about it. If you were to lower the price, you get less money, but more people, but you probably end up just getting around about the same money. If more people joined because it was cheaper, you just end up, you know, going to the same level rather than just keeping it at 35, making the same amount. And maybe if someone extra joins, you get even extra on top of that, which I think obviously, you know, I think that's more of a beneficial thing for her at least. People saying, well, it's very known at this point that platforms like YouTube and Twitch take a decent cut of donations along with being paid very poorly. But you do know you have free will not to pay for Patreon tiers, right? Just watching them helps them due to how much just watching them helps, especially due to how annoying both YouTube and Twitch have made their algorithms. And yeah, people said just don't buy the Patreon level or pledge a lower tier, I guess. Like, yeah, like so many people are like, hey, I don't understand the complaint here. Like, I don't get the complaint. This sounds perfectly fine. Is there anybody here good at economics to explain this? They said, you know, they said that's a Veblen good. A Veblen good is a type of luxury for which the demand increases as the price increases, an apparent contradiction of the law of demand. The higher prices of Veblen goods may make them more desirable as a status symbol in the practices of conspicuous consumption and conspicuous leisure. So yeah, they're saying the price is higher because it's Silvervale and it's something that only the fans are willing to pay $35. Which again, 100% true. You know, the price is high because it is Silvervale. Silvervale is a popular person, right? You know, they don't want it from just anybody. They want, you know, content from her. So of course they will pay that extra to get the content from her. Like, I think that is the most logical kind of explanation to all of this. Said, okay, so either get the cheaper options or I don't know, don't buy it at all. How is this drama? Which again, 100% true. People will put like, okay, you know, which again, I do think it is pretty crazy, right? I think that anybody complaining about this kind of stuff is stupid. Not just Silvervale as well. Obviously, they say VTubers in general, like large VTubers. Obviously, there's a ton of other VTubers as well who also have similar Patreons and whatever. And yeah, I do think it is extremely stupid to be kind of getting angry at them for essentially, you know, providing a service that people want and people are willing to pay that money for. If you can't afford it or you don't want to pay for it, that's totally fine, right? Just don't pay for it and move on with your life, right? There's no point in arguing about it because it's never going to change, and there's no need to start any kind of drama about this because it's stupid, right? It's so stupid. But yeah, I just thought I wanted to cover that real quick because I thought it was pretty unnecessary, and I thought the amount of hate going towards Silvervale was crazy, at least from this person in particular. But I'm glad to see that the comments actually kind of went, hang on, man, I think you're kind of wrong here. This is kind of like, man, I don't know about this one. So again, great to see. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameStop, use my code Kaza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.